Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. I just want to take a few minutes to commend State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby for having courage to bring charges against the 6 officers who are responsible for the death of Freddie Gray. Unlike the prosecutor in Ferguson, unlike the prosecutor in Staten Island, this woman has courage. This woman has bravery. This woman is committed to justice. When I heard her speak, I heard passion. I saw someone who expressed a genuine love for justice, a genuine desire to seek out the truth and to make sure that there's justice for the Gray family. And her passion, her intensity, her commitment is something that the people of Baltimore should be really proud of. It is something that the nation should be proud of. We need more people like her, more committed and fair prosecutors. And this is a prime example of why we need more prosecutors, more African American prosecutors who are genuinely committed to the community, who have the courage to stand up to the police departments. Often, these prosecutors are so tied to the police that they are unable to hold the police accountable. They are unable to bring strong cases against the police. Instead, they try to balance things. They try to play both sides of the fence by, instead of actually pushing a case before the grand jury the way they would push any other case, what they do is they set up a circumstance where there's special treatment or special rules applied for police officers. So instead of just presenting the facts that are necessary to get an indictment, what prosecutors often do is they present all the evidence, even exculpatory evidence, before the grand jury. And sometimes these prosecutors, like in Ferguson, instead of actually playing the role of prosecutor, they actually play the role of defense attorney for these police who have killed Black people. So often these police officers walk away without being indicted by the grand jury. So I am pleased that we have somebody that has courage in that state's attorney's office. We need more African Americans to become prosecutors like Miss Mosby. We need those kind of people that are genuinely committed to justice, people who are concerned about the community. So right now, I'm impressed. I'm impressed by her courage at this point. I don't know where the case is going to go from here, but at this moment, I am pleased with what she has done in terms of bringing these charges against those officers. I just hope that those officers are pursued just like they pursue these protesters. There's a protester here in Baltimore who smashed some windows on a car. That brother faces a lengthy sentence for smashing windows on a car. His bail is set at $500,000, and he faces almost a life sentence for that act. I hope these police officers face a similar sentence for their crimes. I really do. And it's really important for us to understand that this is just the beginning of the process. We can't sit back and relax now. We can't go back to sleep now. We have to realize that we must be vigilant. The protest must continue. The struggle continues. Because often charges are brought against officers, but often these officers walk free. They often walk free, as was the case with the Michael Brown trial, where Darren Wilson walked free. Well, actually, it wasn't a trial, but the grand jury proceedings where Officer Darren Wilson walked free. He's a free man after shooting Michael Brown, an unarmed African-American teenager, multiple times. The same is true in the Eric Garner case. That brother was strangled on camera, choked on camera to death. And those officers involved in his killing are free. No indictment. And then we have the case of a wannabe cop, George Zimmerman, who killed Trayvon Martin. People were all excited when charges were finally brought against George Zimmerman. But in the end, George Zimmerman walked free. So now is not the time to relax. Now is not the time to get comfortable. Now is not the time to go back to sleep and continue with business as usual. We must step up our efforts. It is because of the people in the streets marching and protesting, and even the rebels who engaged in militant action, militant acts of civil disobedience. Even they helped create an environment whereby charges were brought against these cops. They have created an environment that has triggered a national conversation about police brutality, a national conversation about poverty, about high unemployment, about all kinds of issues that have been neglected for far too long. If it wasn't for those protesters, those issues would not even be mentioned. Freddie Gray would just be another dead black person if it wasn't for the protesters and the rebels. So I commend them too tonight. I commend them, and I hope they keep up and continue to struggle, because the struggle is far from over. This is only the beginning. We can't forget that. And this case just makes it clear about how much we really need to have more African American prosecutors. We need more African Americans on both sides of the criminal justice system. Because prosecutors, they can determine which cases are prosecuted and which cases aren't prosecuted. So when you have these cases of police brutality, if you have the right prosecutor, then those cases will be brought and aggressively litigated. It's another example of why voting is so important. The people voted for Mosby, and they put her in office, and they made the right choice as of right now. It seems that they made the right choice because she's doing the right thing by pursuing these charges. And before I go, I just wanted to bring up one other point about this case. There are 6 officers who have been charged, and 3 of them are African American. 3 are white. There are 2 African American men and 1 African American woman who have been charged. And, you know, when I think about the fact that African Americans were involved in the killing of Freddie Gray, I'm reminded of a song that KRS-One did like way back in the, I think it was the 90s, early 90s or 80s, late 80s, called The Sound of the Police. And in that song, he basically says that police officers are like overseers on the plantation who enforce the will of the slave master. And unfortunately, many African American police officers are willing to play the role of the overseer. Instead of standing up to police misconduct, instead of standing up against police brutality, these officers often participate in police brutality against their own people. Much the way overseers did. They are like the house Negroes that Malcolm X told us about. And they too must be brought to justice, just like any other person who attacks the Black community. So I'll just end on that note. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.